Hello friends, in our previous video on project finance, what we have seen is that how the cost of project is framed, how the means of finance are planned, and what kind of coverage ratio should be there to take care of the debt if the project has taken any debt. That was a exercise in short about the future projections. Now let us talk in this video about how these projections are calculated, arrived at. So generally, any project which you set up for any manufacturing activity, the repayment period for loan is about 6 to 8 years or maybe sometime 10 years, and accordingly you have to prepare the projections for those 6 or 8 or 10 years. Now how do you prepare the projections? So the most important part is your revenue, the sales, and how the sales figure comes in with your capacity, your production, and how much of the goods produced are sold. So the first thing is you have to calculate the capacity of this plant. So which are the critical machineries which are producing the goods and have bottlenecks? The main machinery whichever has the lowest production capacity, the total production has to be kept at that level. So this is the production capacity of that plant at the maximum efficiency. Then you have to give some discount for operational efficiency. So suppose the project plant capacity is say 100 ton a day, the maximum capacity utilization capacity can be say 85 or 90%, but this all depends on the technical people, how are they arriving at the capacities, which differs from project to project, plant to plant. Now what you do is that in the first year there are generally more bottlenecks, there are teething problems. So the first year you take the capacity at a lower, maybe say 60-70% of the capacity, plant capacity. In the second year you take it to 80%, and in the third year onwards you go to the optimum maximum capacity, that is around 90% of the total plant capacity. Once you arrive at the capacity and the product, then go for cost of production. Now how the cost of production is calculated is that your raw material consumption, your plant overheads, your labor and wages and salaries for manufacturing of the goods, any labor charges which you have paid, the power and fuel which has been incurred for producing these things, this all becomes direct cost. So this is your direct cost, and then some indirect cost like the overall administrative expenses, marketing expenses, financial expenses, depreciation of the plant. Many people they take depreciation in the direct manufacturing cost because it is permanent, fixed. So after having calculated based on various formulas and the information given by the technical people, you arrive at the total cost of production or cost of sales, because production is before your financial expenses and marketing expenses, administrative expenses, that is the cost of production. But with all this is the cost of sales. Once you arrive at the cost of sale, say suppose it is 70 to your selling price of 100. So then you just compare with the peer industries or the peer groups whether their cost is also coming around the same. If it's a new item, something new product, then you have to make your best judgment based on the available information, and then from the whatever the profit left, you have to take care of the taxation as per the taxation rules and regulations and the policies, and this is how the profitability is calculated. So suppose first year you had taken at 60%, so the whole thing will be calculated on 60%, but some of the expenses may remain high, like general administrative expenses, salary expenses, which are fixed in nature. So next year when you go for 70% of the capacity, your profit will be higher because some of these expenses are going to remain stagnant, only the variables will change. And maybe third year 80% and or from fourth year if you are taking 90%, accordingly your profitability will increase. So once you calculate the profitability like this, the future projections, for whatever the repayment period of the loan, 6, 7, 8 or 10 years, then the final number which comes in gives you to help you to calculate the ratio to service this loan, that is the debt. So how the debt service coverage ratio is calculated? You take the net profit of every year, add depreciation in it to arrive at the cash profit. Also the interest component on the term loan also you add into it to arrive at a figure, cash flow, before servicing the interest even. And then from that figure, what you have the dividing factor is the term loan installments and the term loan interest. These two together are added, and the upper figure, the higher multiplier which you have, the profitability, the cash generation, you divide that with the repayment obligations, and this is how your ratio, the debt service ratio, comes in. The debt service ratio average should be in the range of minimum 1.7 to 2 times coverage, because then the bank or institutions or anybody who has given you the loan feels comfortable that you have got 1.5 times the cover or 2 times of the cover to take care of his debt obligation. Because if something goes wrong, even 5% here or there, for that you have to check the elasticity. That is why the ratio should be very comfortable. So this is how you calculate the profitability, the future projections, your repayment capacity, and with this capacity only generally the banks, they calculate the repayment cycle, the loan repayment cycle. Are you capable to repay or not? Many a times it so happens that in the initial years the profitability is low. So in that case the banks work out a ballooning installment system, where in the initial years your installments, repayment installments are less, and in the later years where the profitability is good, the installments are higher. However, in case of interest, mind it well, you have to service it from the day one. Only to the extent of the project implementation period, the interest you can take in the cost of project, but the remaining interest, even if the profitability is low, has to be taken in the profit and loss account. So these are the basic facts, basic methods to calculate the projections for future, and to also satisfy your lender that your coverage ratio is comfortable to take care of the loan. Now let me talk about something like collateral securities. Now many banks, they insist for collaterals, though there are many schemes for SMEs, for a smaller loan up to 1 crore or something, where the bank should not insist for any collateral, but generally in case of, especially for your working capital loan, they need collaterals. So collateral security is what? Is that the promoters or the company own any surplus asset which has not been mortgaged to any bank or institutions, which is free. That securities can be offered to the bank as a collateral. In the bad times like this, the bank insists for higher collaterals, maybe to the extent of 100% of the working capital facilities, or sometimes 50%. But generally for a good company, a running company, 30 to 40% of the collateral is sufficient according to me. And for a smaller SME, you may at least flatly say that the promoters have no asset, so no collateral can be offered unless the promoters have it. Now how do you calculate that working capital? This will complete this whole of your project financing, your application part. The working capital is consisting of all your current assets minus the current liability is the working capital. Now what the banks are really concerned or they consider is your stocks, your book debts, and from that to reduce your payables, your creditors towards purchases. This is how they calculate the net working capital requirement. Out of that your margin of 25 or 30%, and the remaining becomes the working capital limits to be sanctioned by the banks. The limits again can be of two types. One is the fund based limit, another one is a non-fund based limit. Fund based is cash credit, where you get the fund against your stocks or book debts, and the non-fund based are the bank guarantee or the letter of credit, that is the LC, because sometimes your supplier wants you to issue LC so that he can supply you the goods on credit. So you need non-fund based facility also. With this, friends, you have completed your cost of project. In the earlier video we saw how it was calculated, then you have completed now the total projections, you have arrived at the various ratios, all this financial information. This information put together with the company information, the promoter information, the project, the technology and other supporting evidences become your whole bank loan application. This is how we take care of the project finance. Thank you.